Should you put green in your high tide deck? No, probably not. Are we going to do that though? Yeah, we're going to do that. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be tapping some islands to play High Tide. So in case you haven't seen this archetype before, the general game plan is make a bunch of land drops, somewhere on the order of 4, 5, 6, cast a High Tide, and then using things that untap your lands, you're going to net even more mana. And then you are going to essentially be a storm deck, stringing together cantrips and draw 7 effects until you can eventually storm your opponent out. The traditional kill for a deck like this is often Brain Freeze. And this will work in just about any situation except where your opponent is playing some sort of like Eldrazi that shuffles the library, your graveyard back into your library after it gets milled. And generally speaking, this is a somewhat efficient storm card. It doesn't necessarily kill quite as quickly as Tendrils of Agony, but it costs a lot less mana, and once we get going, we're going to build a silly high storm count in most cases. However, today I've been asked to play an alternative win condition. I've been asked to play Aeve, Progenitor Ooze. This is a creature with Storm, which has the upside of randomly dodging some things that, can't counter non-creatures. That can't counter creature spells. A lot of counter spells think your like Force of Negations, your Flusterstorms and things can't actually target creatures, so this is a way to juke them. Now, within a High Tide deck, there's kind of two problems here. Number one, High Tide is traditionally a mono-blue deck. Number two, this is a pass the turn line. Unless you are doing something to give your creatures haste, your opponent gets a turn, and that means they get a chance to cast their Terminus, their Supreme Verdict, or attempt to just win through your giant board of oozes. So, is this an ideal and optimized win condition for this deck? No, absolutely not. Is it going to be fun to make an army of oozes and, slimed people? Yes. Let's take a look at the deck list. So here is our blue-green High Tide deck list, courtesy of Armchair General. So they originally had Metamorphose in this spot where I've changed it to Growth Spiral, and they initially had more copies of Summer's Bloom. It is just like objectively not worth it to just splash for Aeve. Like it just doesn't make sense. So if we're going to go into green for some reason, like we want to do something else in green's chunk of the color pie, that makes it worth it. And I think that something is making additional land drops. Shout out to Bryant Cook. I shot him the initial deck list and I was like, hey, what are your thoughts? And he was the one who suggested Growth Spiral. So generally speaking, the game plan is make a bunch of land drops, cast a High Tide, use something like Turnabout or Time Spiral to untap those lands and make more mana. And then we are going to cast Mind's Desire. And Mind's Desire should chain relatively easily into another Mind's Desire. The math was for a slightly different build, but I think the math is like if you cast this for Storm or five or more, you're pretty likely to be able to Mind's Desire a second time, or at least hit another major payoff card like another Time Spiral to try again. Florian Revealed is a really interesting card when you are playing a Mind's Desire deck. It is a fantastic hit off of Mind's Desire, while also being a 1-mana cantrip for your lands. Specifically, it's going to let us get Tropical Islands to hopefully make the green mana for this card. Now, our Green Splash is not free. It comes with costs. It comes at the cost of maybe some other 1-mana cantrips, like Ponder is not in this deck list. It maybe comes at extra copies of Candles, or it comes at the cost of a Cunning Wish. So a lot of times an alternative win condition for these decks when your opponent does have something like an Eldrazi is Cunning Wish for Blue Sun Zenith, and then you just make them literally draw their entire library. So this is kind of where we're at with the main deck. In terms of the sideboard, it's pretty focused. I don't want to sideboard too much with this deck list. So we're going to have Dress Down and one the old heads here might recognize Teferi's Realm as ways of kind of taking out Hate Bears, Chalice of the Voids, things of that general nature. We're going to have Fairies for graveyard-based decks and Flusterstorm as our generic board in for blue decks. So I think the goal today is to put up some wins with this deck list. High Tide is at the lower end of the power level for a legacy combo deck. So if we're making High Tide worse by trying to have some fun with it, temper expectations. I would say if we go 3-2 today, that's a major victory. So yeah, if you find you need some growth spirals or anything like that for your legacy deck, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. And let's just see how this goes. Oh, and Happy New Year. I'm recording this one on the 1st. Let's battle. Alrighty, here we go. So I am probably going to have... maybe I don't turn one Brainstorm. I might just turn one... Ooh, that's annoying. I actually have a surprising number of non-basic lands in this deck. Or a High Tide deck, which is normally just a gajillion D islands. Force of Will's not particularly strong. Trying not to fetch green here for this. We're going to upkeep Island Cycle. Going to pick basics. Well, the good news is I can get a lot of lands. The bad news is I don't have a real cantrip anymore working towards finding like High Tide into Time Spiral. Davenport is really good against my deck. You do it in response to a High Tide though. Oh, or we could just die. That is also acceptable. I mean, it's not acceptable, but it's happening. All right. That does not accomplish anything here. We're dead. We just got goldfished. So against a Wasteland Life from the Loam deck, my green splash is incredibly bad. So if my opponent is playing Seer of Resistance type cards, then this is a way to phase out Chalice of the Void. Probably means I want it. I could go down some growth spirals to play something like a Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm is pretty mid. Like crop rotation is kind of the big one. I don't think I'm gonna mess around with like that or fairy. This is okay. I'm gonna need more land drops, especially with growth spiral here. I don't. Well, without the ability to shuffle for the brainstorm, I think I'm just gonna bottom both of these. I just want lands. Like I can force of will on Mind's, like pitching a Mind's Desire. I don't think I'm supposed to force the Mox. Oh boy. That one's a little tougher. I'm trying not to force of will. I guess I could force of will pitch growth spiral on that. I don't think I get to pitch the Mind's Desire here. I think that's kind of my conceptual payoff right now. But like, if I draw another land, then pitching the growth spiral is a huge deal. Because I could just like end of turn growth spiral and then High Tide into Mind's Desire. It is not my ideal to do so though. Library resolves. Yeah, and that is bad. Like, I could power through something like that with multiple High Tides. But this is just not great. Port is a disaster. Crop rotation, also very bad. That lets my opponent start to get an actual win condition going. We're dead. I need Teferi's Realm specifically. Well, I mean, ask and you shall receive, I guess. Oh, I shouldn't have fetched, right? This is not enough mana to cast through 2 of those. Sure. And I guess because of Rashad Port, like, it actually becomes very tough to cast through 2. Okay. Sure. Guess that was my opponent trying to play around an Echoing Truth. Cool, they didn't port me. That's the good news. That means that I can resolve a Teferi's Realm and try to phase out these spheres. This is certainly a weird one. It's still really hard for me to go off if my opponent plays well with double Rashad port. So what I'm going to need to happen is I'm going to need my Teferi's Realm trigger to resolve to exile these. Then I think I need my opponent to Rashad port me in my upkeep after this trigger has resolved so that I can cast High Tide and end up going into my main phase with the ability to cast Mind's Desire. I still don't know that I have enough to combo off. So this triggers. The opponent has to choose artifact, creature, land, or non-aura enchantment to make all that stuff phase out. My opponent chose creature. Notably, this says all non-token permanents of that type phase out, so the construct token doesn't phase out. All right, my opponent takes a little damage here. Don't imagine that they have to make another construct token. Sure. God, is there... What are we doing now? God damn it. God damn it. So, let's talk about the parts of a turn. The untap step comes before the upkeep step. Now, this is notable. This Choke's an asshole. So, like, I can phase out these, but we're screwed. We don't have a path to victory here beating Sphere Choke.
Today's video is sponsored by Eminence Gaming. Their command tower software that they use to run events is awesome, and in January, I'm going to be attending another one of their events, The Boil, in Atlanta at Charlie's Collectible Show, which is, no joke, one of the coolest venues that I've ever played at. If you are interested in some CEDH and or meeting me, consider checking it out.
Alrighty, here we go. We have multiple High Tides, which is cool. We have a Time Spiral, also cool. Generally speaking, I just need to hit some more land drops. Notably, this is going to come in tapped for the first portion of the game here. I think I let that resolve. Conceptually speaking, I don't think I'm going to like this matchup. I think my opponent is going to have discard and counterspells and fast clock. That is not good for me. So I expect to just lose this one, just kind of conceptually thinking about how the matchup is likely to go. And that's not a good thing to be saying from this early on in the game. Also, after I Time Spiral, there's just no guarantee that my opponent doesn't like draw more counter magic and then just has the ability to stop me afterwards. Another conceptual problem here is that my opponent is an Orcish Bowmaster's deck. Really good against draw 7s. This just feels like it is going to be a disaster. I also don't really feel like I have done anything resembling Storm plays yet this league. Like, High Tide is just, generally speaking, a clunky deck list. We're playing with a clunkier than normal version. Are you scared? Am I going to get some free value of you not attacking? That would be super clutch. I do not. I don't understand why their clock is ticking down so much. I don't know what they're thinking about. It may just be that they have a slow internet connection. Yeah. So, like, my opponent's not casting cantrips trying to grow these, which means they probably just have, like, a bunch of counterspells in their hand. Not the best for me. So, I'm on Schrodinger's 2-turn clock, where I could die in 2 attack steps, or I might not. Like, I could take 3, I could take 9 next turn, which is definitely awkward. I think I'm just playing Island and passing. So basically, I would like to wait until right before I die to combo off. And things like Lightning Bolt can change that number. Hey, a Lightning Bolt. So I've taken 5. Let's be at 11, which is really 8. Which means I probably have to attempt to combo off on my next turn here. Because 3, 6, 9 plus 3 is 12. That sure is not a blue card to pair with Force of Will. Is it possible for me to wait one turn? If my opponent has Orcish Bowmasters, we get hit down to 10. That adds 2 power to the board. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Plus Lightning Bolt is only 10. I don't know that I win if I just go High Tide, Time Spiral without Force of Will backup, and I don't know that High Tide, Time Spiral is enough. Yeah, if Aeve is literally any blue card, I feel confident attempting this turn. I look real dumb if I just, like, die, though. Note that this is symmetrical. That my opponent's islands will tap for more mana. Alright. I think I cannot cast the other High Tide, unfortunately. All-Time Spiral. Got this with Force of Will backup. I've got it through like Spell Pierces and Daze. But this is not how you want to start a Time Spiral turn. Like, you would prefer it be much stronger than this. Okay. So I think I am supposed to Force of Will before these resolve for the purposes of being better against something like a Brainstorm. Alright. The note, my opponent tapped this Volcanic Island for red, and they still have blue floating. That's the result of High Tide. I go to 7. Daze is fine. I'm going to put cards on top with the Surveil. Alright, are we actually getting to be Storm Gamers? Why did you put a card on top and then fetch it away? Sure. I'm at 4. Alright. Untap, 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 untap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 6. We're not going to untap my opponent's lands. We are not really too lethal anything yet. We're going to live in fear of Orcish Bowmasters, that's for sure. God damn it. Well, that's happening. I take 1. Now can't Time Spiral again. Mind's Desire is exactly what I need. Bottom Preordain. Top Mind's Desire. Take 1. I cast the other Preordain. I cast the other Preordain. I can't Force of Will later. I probably don't. So let's cast a Candle. We're getting a Brainstorm in response. Alright, opponent's got Molten Collapse. That's good to know about. That is something that can kill I guess, my 1 candle. So, the next thing that's kind of weird here is that, like, if I cast Turnabout and it doesn't work, I just die, right? Like, if my opponent Force of Wills a Turnabout, I just die. So if my Candle doesn't resolve, I probably can't cast Turnabout. I have to just cast Mind's Desire. Okay, yep, that's fine. So with Mind's Desire, I can cast the revealed cards without paying their mana cost. So this should be fine. And it has Storm. Just going to let all these resolve. Alright, so here's the thing. I have the win unless my opponent has Lightning Bolt in hand. It's going to be kind of hard to get a Force of Will into my own hand here. Use target player. I guess I want to tap this first. So Turnabout, target me, untap lands. So what am I doing here? If I cast a cantrip and go to 1, then Orcish Bowmasters also is potentially lethal, so I don't think I do that. So let's... Oh, fuck! I can't cycle that from there. God damn it. I just lost the game. Oh, that is frustrating. Because I had mana floating, it didn't give me a chance to undo that. God damn it. Oh, that's frustrating. Like, it's unclear, like, we maybe still died a lightning bolt anyway, but... Alright. This is another time where I wish I was just in mono blue. Because if I'm in mono blue, I don't have, like, the Aves in my deck list, and I instead have just Cunning Wish for Blue Sun, and I can, I think, pretty easily kill my opponent that turn. I didn't do Blue Sun math, but feels like that would have been possible. Alright. I'll probably play some Flosters and call that good enough. Go down to one of these. The fact that both my win conditions are past the turn win conditions is pretty brutal. Like, it's just very, very bad in this matchup. Because I, like, oftentimes die before Aeve tokens can kill my opponent. And they can often upkeep Bolt me to finish me off, or upkeep Bowmasters to finish me off. This is a nightmare matchup. This is one non-basic land. Absolutely not. I mean, I keep this. I throw this back into the deck list. But this is not how I want a start to go. Like, my hand's bad. I have Brainstorm, which can help. But, like, I basically need to cast the Brainstorms immediately, or I'm vulnerable to Orcish Bowmasters. I hate it. I also, I think, have to play this Dazably. Fuck. Alright, I mean, we're drawing through all this stuff. The hope was to hit a fetch land or a Lorien revealed there. Which we did not do. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of chip damage here. And my Growth Spiral doesn't even get to make another land drop here. I'll just play that and pass the turn. And if my opponent fetches, I'll just play the Growth Spiral around Bowmasters to just redraw the turnabout, which my opponent didn't do, so they almost certainly have Bowmasters. Sucks for people named Phil. Yep. And if they have Bowmasters, like, I don't really have things to remove it. Yeah, I think I'm basically always going to be dead to an Orcish Bowmasters. I think I'm not playing around it anymore. Like, I think if my opponent has it, I just lose. Yeah. I don't know, like, maybe... If I wait to, like, try and draw Force of Will, it's just a disaster, right? Because my opponent just gets to, like, keep clocking me with these. Yeah, I think this is a win through. Yeah, I also just don't have protection. Bottom Brainstorm, top the land, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I am supposed to beat this deck conceptually. Don't have something like Dismembers for Bowmasters. Like, this is 9. So 1, 2, 3, 6. I'm already dead to a Lightning Bolt. So, here we go. Tropical Island. Fast High Tide. I'm just gonna get red blasted. Yeah. That's cool. So at the point where that's countered, 3, 6, 9, I'm just dead. We have no chance here.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too.
All right. That doesn't do anything. We're gonna mulligan this one. Second hand's a keep. Let's put one Lorien revealed back in the deck for the purposes of Mind's Desire. Oh, this is bad. Yeah, so like Chalice of the Void is a decent chunk of the metagame. Oh, okay, it's goblins, so we're less likely to get chaliced. We could just die on turn 1, though. Yeah, this could be worse. That happens. Okay. This is going to be a very fast clock. So my opponent just activates. This is 6. So 8, 16, I'm dead in 3 shots. I'm dead in 2 shots if my opponent can play another spell in addition to that. That races everything my deck is capable of doing. I need like a Growth Spiral for an additional land drop, in addition to like going and finding a High Tide. Yeah, we're just not going to keep pace with this matchup. Like, we've lost this one before we played. Yeah, so that's double pump. I take 10. Yeah, I am just dead. I take 10 and then I take 10. Cool. Concede. That's brutal. I can play a couple of Hydroblasts. I put a bunch in the deck list thinking that this might be a problem matchup. Aves are probably reasonable here. Let's try something like this. This is no mana. We'll mulligan. I have exactly 2 Mystic Sanctuaries in the deck. Having both of them in this hand is a problem. I think I have to keep it. And hope that my opponent's threats come down on turn 2, not on turn 1. If they come down on turn 1, I die to them. Rip my counterspells. Do I get a break, or is there a bunch of artifact mana? Okay, this is fine. So I think I am just holding up Hydroblast. Like, I know I can't counter the thing, but I can still kill the thing. I don't think I'm going after Skirk here. Yes. What is that? Oh, it's a new art for that. So this is a sticker goblin. I can't counter it, but I can kill it in response to its trigger, fizzling that trigger, and hopefully stranding a bunch of cards in my opponent's hand. My opponent could have sacrificed it for a mana, but I don't really expect that to do anything. I dropped a 19 from that hit. I need to have a good turn here. This is not what I'm looking for. Aeve goes back in the deck. I'm not ready for turnabout yet. I think I need to keep double Preordain and cast double Preordain this turn. We're going to fetch. My opponent has Magus of the Moon. I'm going to accept that it just beats me. Like, if it sets me back 2 land drops, I just don't realistically think I can win. So I'm just going to find a Tropical Island here, in case the green becomes relevant later. I am not looking for more 6-drops. Bottom. Let's Preordain again. I'm not looking for Lorien Revealed. I'm honestly not looking for Brainstorm either. I think I have to take it. I think I just need to set up Goblin Matron. This deterministically means that my opponent can Muxus me next turn. Oh, they're just going for Ringleader. That just means they already have Muxus. F, okay. I mean, that's fine. Muxus doesn't always immediately kill me. Don't Pyroblast me, I guess? Don't Pyroblast me? It's really unfortunate. Oh, shit. We're going. We're going. Tropical Island. We time Spiral. Untap, 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 untap. I might have fizzled. Like, I don't even think I cast this High Tide. I think I need to Preordain, and sometimes I need to stop the combo turn here. Fuck. Force doesn't do anything. Yeah, we just fully fizzled. We drew 5 lands. Oh, that's frustrating. I haven't complained about that aspect of High Tide yet. It's a non-deterministic combo deck. And that is a thing that can happen when you successfully resolve your 6-mana spell. Yeah. Concede? Like, my opponent just does that, and Ringleader attacks me for 4 with Chalice here. I don't have answers to Chalice. We need to, like, do some sort of Natural Storm Eve stuff. It's not realistic for us to win this matchup either. All right, we only have 1 land here, so this one is an auto mulligan. This hand sucks. Like, I keep this, I put the Brain Freeze back, I make 3 land drops. I don't have a High Tide. Don't have a way to cantrip towards a High Tide. Definitely feeling the absence of Ponder in this deck list. We doing lands again? Probably the most common Taiga deck. Sure don't want to be drawing more lands right now. Like, I want cantrips. I need a High Tide specifically. My opponent's a Life from the Lone Wasteland deck. These tropical islands are a huge problem. Oh no, it is Storm instead. Brain Freeze is an instant? I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay, it's Clunky Storm though. There's a chance for me. Yes. Uh-huh. This is some sort of Ruby Storm deck list. The LEDs. And this probably invalidates my Brain Freeze. That resolves. Gamble gets discarded. Rite of Flame is fine. Land Grant reveals Burning Wish and Empty the Warrens. So if I were to Brain Freeze my opponent right now and mill over their lands, my opponent would just cast Burning Wish, crack, and empty anyway. So there is still a path to victory. So I let them Land Grant and hope that they mess up somewhere. Burning Wish for blue. You got it. Are you just building Storm Count and the plan is still empty? Plan is still empty. So this is 18 power. I can mill my opponent for like 27, but that is not 49. I draw High Tide. I can High Tide have 4 mana. That doesn't do anything. I could draw Brainstorm and hit the absolute nuts. That is not Brainstorm. Yep. We are just dead to a faster combo deck here. So I can board in Blusters and Hydroblasts. My Eve. A small Eve line probably beats my opponent. These probably go. I'm just trying to play a control deck. I guess I keep one of these and then trim like one turnabout or something. So my Mind's Desire lines are going to be like very noticeably worse. The average converted mana cost of this hand is just absolutely batshit insane. Nope. This I keep. I put this back in my deck. Let's get rid of this stop until I need it. I am okay at not dying. I don't think I'm good at winning. And I think Galvanic Relay based lines are going to be really good against what I'm doing. Yep. Yeah, you can start going off. I've got a Flusterstorm for a Storm spell. That's fine. LED's fine. That is not really okay. That means, like, Echo could just resolve. I can't Hydroblast that one. So I'll Fluster that one. And now I'm just hoping that I don't have to use the Force of Will this turn. Land Grant reveals Burning Wish. That's fine. My opponent can play Taiga, play Chrome Mox. There's no imprint here. Then they can cast Burning Wish, crack for red, get Galvanic Relay. Cracking for black instead. Regardless, I just counter it. I guess they would get goblins at this point. I'm going to get rid of the Hydroblast. I do have to keep the High Tide to win, I think. Draw another High Tide. Alright. It do be like that sometimes. I'm looking for a land, and then I am looking for a payoff card of some nature. Also, like, Veil of Summer also just stops me from brain freezing my opponent. That sucks. Oh, you're going again? This is going to be a relay? Oh, fuck. Sure. I guess we're just dead. I guess my opponent has no mana yet? Well, okay, like, they have 2 Rite of Flames in graveyard. Is die to a Rite of Flame. Okay, now I can at least counter a Ritual card. But my opponent has a win condition sitting in play. At least my opponent's deck doesn't have many lands. Like, they do probably have to cast a spell to do the thing. I don't think I just High Tide and try to get lucky here. At High Tide, Turnabout, Lorient Revealed. I think I just say no to these. And try to draw another cheap cantrip to just keep chugging along. I mean, now I can, like, Force of Will, pitching to Turnabout. Like, that's not nothing. I probably just have to Force of Will that. Otherwise, I can die to a land drop. And then I just need to hit, like, one of my 6 drops. Spirit Guide. Alright, that'll do it. Yep, and I'm dead. Yep, that is the other 44 cards. This is a disaster. Alright, normally I would concede at this point, but these games are going really quickly because I have no ability to do things, so we're going to play the last one out. I am going to keep this hand, hoping that like we can actually see Growth Spiral take advantage of these lands, and then just cast Alorian Revealed. No, we're going to be dead before we do anything. Alright, good game. This one. Note that I'm not going to play around Blood Moon. I'm always just, I think, going to lose to a Blood Moon if that's what happens. Dead. Just literally cannot beat a Trinisphere, realistically. Yeah. I am not going to concede now so that my opponent doesn't know that Trinisphere just beats me. I think I'm going to try to make myself look like a control deck other than look like High Tide. I can get up to 3 islands. I still really just don't beat Trinisphere, though. Like, I don't have Cunning Wish for a bounce spell as something I can work towards. I can't realistically, like, cast multiple High Tides. I guess I could draw, the one of Candle and power through. Like, that is a thing that could, in theory, happen. But, like, now I am locked out of these green spells. And this, which would normally be a basic island in a traditional High Tide build, is also just offline. Yeah, that could have been worse. Like, any creature is just worse than channeling Sokenzin. Yeah. I'm going to take 4 from this attack. I'm at 11. They're imprinting a Chromox. You have, like, double Fury in hand or something? Like, I could be proven wrong, but... Cast High Tide. Have 4 mana. Cast Turnabout. Untap all of these. Have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 mana. Am I gonna die if I wait a turn? Maybe. Mind's Desire is like so bad against Trinisphere. So High Tide. Untap all my lands. 2, 4, 6, 8. Load some extra mana with a Turnabout. I think I try to wait for one more naturally drawn land. I could die sometimes to a Broadside, but if my opponent had something like that, they should have just played it last turn. That's fine. Brings me to 7. I cannot make green mana, so drawing this is a disaster. At this point, with like Broadside very clearly being lethal, I think I have to try. So, High Tide, 4 mana, Turnabout, target me, untap lands, do this again, Turnabout, target me, untap lands. So 4, 5, 6. Mind's Desire with a small storm count, but I have to leave 3 floating. Like, the plan just has to be hit an untapper or an Aeve or something. Island, Preordain, Candelabra? Make a land drop. So, cast Candelabra. Gives me 5 mana. Untap 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can now cast a Preordain. I can still hit a 6 mana payoff spell, which I did. Bottom that. Top Time Spiral. 6 mana. Cast it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's still Turnabout after a Lorien revealed. Fuck. Hate this. So if I Turnabout, I can keep going. Untap lands. 1, 2, 3. Cast Preordain. That's a Mind's Desire. I only have 1 High Tide. They have 8 mana. I can use 6. Wait, can I get both of these? No. If I cast High Tide, my lands tap for 3. Wait, hold on. My lands tap for 3. That doesn't quite work. As I cast High Tide with 1 floating, That gets me to Preordain. This taps for 3. I'm 1 land short of doing that. 10 times 3, 30. What about a Brain Freeze baseline? I need 15 copies. No, I can't force away my own stuff for free because of the fucking Trinisphere. Ugh. Okay. This is 10. I can try to set up for next turn. And just keep these. I think I have to set off to try to combo off next turn. That sucks. Top both of those. Cast a Preordain. Growth Spiral goes on bottom. Top Mind's Desire. I think I'm just going to Brain Freeze my opponent. I have 2 of those. I think I just mill them for most of their cards. And we try to finish the job next turn. Is there anything interesting in here? Not really. This is all normal stuff. All right, there's a land drop. Oh, I guess I can't force a will. Trinisphere. Now Chalice happens, and I don't think I can win anymore. All right, I go to 3. I can't High Tide. So I can just try to naturally build Storm with like Time Spiral. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This doesn't really do anything. Brainstorm doesn't do anything. I can't cast these. Alright. I could turnabout tap my opponent's creatures, but I think I've got to try to win. That's just a line that doesn't lose for another turn. So I untap these. Now, this is a very small storm count Mind's Desire. That still allows me to make another island as a land drop. Force of Will is a miss. Growth Spiral is a miss. High Tide is a miss. I can cast 1 more spell. None of that matters. We technically played a game of Magic. +3 Hydroblasts, +2 Teferi's Realm, minus all the green cards because I am getting Blood Moon. This Mystic Sanctuary hand is not going to cut it. Well, I cannot die to the first lock piece, but this is awful. I'm just going to get a tapped land out of the way, I think. Like, I force a will the first threat, and we go from there. Actually, I probably ignore threats and I force a will lock pieces. I could soul read. This is my opponent's 1 red source and force of will this. I think that has a higher chance of actually winning me the game than any other line. Like, they can just turn around and Chalice on 1 me and, like, or Spirit Guide me or whatever. God damn it. But I think I am at take wild risks portion of the league because everything my deck does isn't working. So trying to steal, they also did just have Spirit Guide. Okay, cool. All right. Life's hard. I can find Teferi's Realm to phase that stuff out and still play something that resembles a game of Magic, but I expect to be dead before I can do that. Like, I don't get to cantrip for it. I just have to naturally draw one of those 2 cards. Rabble Master will outrace me, assuredly. Like, unless I lock into the Teferi's Realm as, like, my top card here. I just don't think it's realistic for me to win. Rabble Master's damage scales up by 2 every turn. 1 from the token, 1 from its attack trigger. Oh, and if there's another threat on top of that, like, get out. Oh, yeah. Alright, no. We're dead. So, just take a quick look at the scoreboard here. That is an 0-5 league where we are 0-10 in matches. So, I knew from when I looked at the initial deck list that I was sent that, like, today's video was not going to do well in terms of win record. But it was much worse than I thought it was going to be. So, conceptually, High Tide does exist within the Legacy metagame. Like, unless you're playing it for fun, there is no reason to play this deck list. It used to be that High Tide was a deck that you could just sit around and make land drops until your opponent, like, put lethal damage on the board, and then you, like, go off in response sometimes, or you go off the turn before you believe that you're going to die. But now you just don't have time to make land drops. Like, on average in a league, I expect to play against a Namesticker Goblin twice, and I probably expect to play against an Orcish Bowmaster's deck twice. And we just can't race those red decks. and we can't really beat Orcish Bowmasters. I think even if I was playing a more optimized version of High Tide, I still would have gotten my teeth kicked in. Like, 4 of these slots probably go to something like Cunning Wish, or maybe like 4 of these slots go to Preordains, 2 of these go to like Cunning Wish, Merchant Scroll type things. Like, even if I am playing a more optimized version of this deck list, I think we're just folding to this metagame of Orcish Bowmasters and Namesticker Goblin and Broadside Bombardiers. We're not fast, so we can't ignore what my opponent is doing. We're not interactive, so we can't stop what my opponent is doing. And that leaves this deck in a very bad spot. So I was asked to play High Tide with green for Aeve and some other green cards, and like I have checked that box. But we didn't play Magic today, and like I hope this is a good didactic lesson. Didaskalos is the Greek word for teacher. Just by the way, didactic means like something done for the sake of learning. So I have suffered through this league, so like you can kind of see. And another thing that I talk about constantly on this channel is like how good solid mana bases are. A big strength of High Tide is that you just get to make like 4 or 5 basic island land drops in a row and not be wastelandable and not care about Blood Moon. And in this league, like we got wastelanded, we got Blood Moon, and we like super cared about both. So I cannot in good conscience recommend playing High Tide in this metagame. And it may kind of be that like this deck is just kind of full on dead and may never recover. I don't necessarily expect new cards for High Tide to randomly appear, because the core of this deck list with like the Time Spirals, Turnabouts, High Tides is ancient. But if you're a crazy person and you want to try to make it work, you think I can do better than I did, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to buy whatever you need for this deck. Whew. Some days you get to be the one casting the broadside, and other days you're the one getting broadside. I think that's what I have to say. Folks, have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.